welcome to Stacking the Shelves for the last 4 weeks of books I got. I tend to be doing these like the third Saturday of the month, third or fourth Saturday of the month, and just kind of covering the books I got in the previous 4 weeks. I have not been getting as much books. I've mentioned in a couple of these Stacking the Shelves videos, I did request a ton of books for review like back over Christmas break. I am still working through those. Some of them don't come out until June, and I always read and review the books like the month before they come out. So once I get to May, I should be all done with those review books and maybe getting more. But way back in like 2018 or something, I think I had over 300 books on my to be read, like on my shelf. Not like I want to read them, but like I had them to read either electronically or physically. And I really worked hard to get that down. And I have kept it down to like 20 or 30 books at a time that I have sitting around to read, which I'm comfortable with. And so I just haven't been getting many because I've only been reading in some cases like, 12 to 20 books a month. So I don't want to get a ton. So this last month, in the last 4 weeks, I did get 5 books. 3 of those were audiobooks that I borrowed from the library. So I'll go through those first. The first one I borrowed was Ghost Girl in the Corner, which is, I didn't know this at the time when I borrowed it, but it's like a novella in the Shadow Shapers series by Daniel Jose Older. And I didn't know this was part of a series when I got it. I thought it was just like a little paranormal novella. And I would actually not recommend getting this if you haven't read the series, because I found it like really confusing. There's a lot of characters, they don't really explain who they are, and you don't really know what's going on. Like they're just Shadow Shaper Society, but they don't explain what it is. And I ended up stopping it halfway through because I just had no idea what was going on. And it was only like a 3-hour audiobook, but I was like, well, I have no idea what's going on. So, I've heard it's a really good series, but unless you've read other books in the series, I wouldn't pick up the Ghost Girl in the Corner novella because I found it very confusing. All right, the next one I got is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. This is a book, so I had read Cloud Cuckoo Land last year. I actually liked Cloud Cuckoo Land quite a bit better than All the Light We Cannot See. A part of this is I have read a lot of World War II historical fiction, and I'm a little burnt out on it. I just don't really want to read any more of it. And I did not realize that All the Light We Cannot See is basically World War II historical fiction. Now, that's not to say it wasn't well done. It has some interesting perspectives on World War II. The point of view goes between a young blind girl and a young man who's like an intellectual genius who gets drafted into Hitler's like the youth program and then eventually into the army. They're interesting perspectives, right? So like the toll the war takes on a super genius young man is different than it might take on a normal person, and the way someone experiences a war when they're blind is very different than like everyone else was experiencing it. And in the end, it's a good book. I don't know I'd recommend listening to it on audiobook because it not only jumps between these characters' points of view, there's actually a third character you hear from occasionally as well, but it goes through like 3 different time periods within World War II, so kind of like right at the beginning, in the middle, and then towards the end when the Allied forces come in the war. So it was really confusing to listen to an audiobook because this whole book, the audiobook I think is like 18 hours long, and it only had I think 9 to 10 chapters in it. So the chapter would start in a certain time period and you would be listening to that chapter for hours and hours and hours, and I can't listen to it for hours and hours at a time because my life does not accommodate that. So I kept forgetting like so are we listening to this person in the present, in the far past, or in the middle past? It was hard to do. So I'd recommend reading it in book form rather than listening to the audiobook. Although the narrator did an excellent job, it was just kind of hard to keep track of. And the whole story is kind of about humanity's resilience, both about like the long-term effect that war has on humanity and about how humans can be so resilient and support each other through these huge catastrophic events. So it was a very good historical fiction book about World War II. I did give it 5 out of 5 stars because I definitely think it deserves that. It's beautifully written. It's very well put together. I wouldn't recommend listening to an audiobook because it was confusing. And I would recommend you knowing that is a World War II historical fiction novel going into it, and make sure you're in the mood for that. I mean, it's somewhat uplifting, but it's a book about World War II. And I have never read a book about World War II that makes me feel good about life. So just keep that in mind. The third book I got And the third and final audiobook I borrowed from the library was Sea Sparrow by Kristen Kishore, and this is the fifth book in the Graceling realm. These books have been released so far apart from each other that it's kind of hard to keep track of what's going on with them. But I think she did. So I'm in the middle of this now. I think I have, it's another rather long audiobook. I think it's 16 hours. And I think I have like 3 hours left in the audiobook. I love Kristen Kishore's like epic fantasy books. She writes so beautifully. The characters are so real. The adventures are just so amazing. And this book follows all of her previous books in that way. There's an excellent at-sea adventure that kind of goes to an Arctic adventure. The characters are just very complex and real, and the issues they're dealing with internally are amazing. There's an overall like political story as well, but that was kind of to the background of the characters' personal struggles. I do think Kishore did a very good job of kind of reminding you what happened in Bitter Blue, which was the last book I think released a couple years ago. She did a pretty good job of that, because I didn't remember that book very well at this point. But yeah, I would recommend it. I know I'm doing many reviews for these again. This is what happens when it's so long between when I do. But I'm really enjoying it so far, and I think it's been really, really well done. And I will always pick up Kristen Kishore fantasy book because I think her writing is phenomenal, even though they're very erratic with the timing with which they come out. All right, then lastly, I did get one book from Kindle Unlimited, and that was Magical Midlife Alliance, which is the 7th book in the Leveling Up series by K.F. Breen. This is a paranormal series about a woman who buys this house in a small town, and she finds out that it is like a magical house, and she's part gargoyle, and it starts all these crazy politics. So that's been a very funny read. It does feature like more middle-aged characters, so characters in their 40s and 50s. So sometimes it gets labeled as women's fiction, or there's another term for it. But it's a very good paranormal series with a lot of magic and shapeshifters and humor, and I've been enjoying it a lot. So very much looking forward to reading that, and hopefully we'll get to that in the next month. And then I did borrow one book from the library on ebook rather than the audiobook, and that is A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. This is the most recent like T. Kingfisher horror series, and it was good. I read this as well. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was good. It's got T. Kingfisher's like kind of goofy, quirky writing style and a lot of goofy humor in it, but it's also kind of creepy. And it's about a middle-aged woman who's an insect archaeologist, which that in and of itself is just fascinating. And she gets laid off during COVID and moves back to her, I think it was because of COVID, and moves back to her mom's house. But her mom is acting kind of weird, and it's her old grandmother's house, and stuff is just weird, and she's trying to unravel exactly what is going on. Not to mention there's like vultures all around like watching her and all this weird creepy stuff. So that was a fun quick read, and it was very entertaining. So those are the 5 books that I got in the last month, and I have read all but Magical Midlife Alliance, and I'm almost done with Sea Sparrow. And that's what you get there, I guess. As I said, not getting a ton of books right now. I'm really trying to keep my to-be-read pile around 20 to 30 books, and so I will get them as I can. I'm hoping Sea Sparrow is long. All the Light We Cannot See was really long, and so I'm hoping once I get through some of these longer books, I'll be moving through them a little bit faster. I am right now also reading the 2nd book in Rachel Aaron's Crystal Calamity series, The Battle of Medicine Rocks. That is another very long book. I think it's like 600 pages long. And so it's going to take me a while to get through it. It's been very good. I've really liked the first book in that series, and I'm enjoying the second one, but it's going to take some time. And for some reason this year, I just have like a lot of long books that I'm reading, and that's okay. I read a lot of novellas and stuff last year, so long is fine, whatever. Yeah, and if you watch the best books of February, March, I did comment a lot. We've been very busy as a family doing some housework, some stuff with my son in college, and then I've been trying to really get back into being a little healthier with my diet and more in shape and more fit. I just have noticed I had kind of like I guess they say come to Jesus moment. My blood pressure was going up a little bit, and I was just having more aches and pains and problems with my joints, and just decided that I needed to take a step back and like relook at my diet, and then make sure I'm doing more weightlifting. I was pretty big into weightlifting. It wasn't even pre-COVID. It was pre when I had my hysterectomy back in 2019. I couldn't lift pretty much anything for 6 months after that. And then I never, as I started to get back into it, I was having to travel a whole bunch for work. And then COVID happened, and I don't even know. I just kind of stopped. So I was still doing cardio, but I wasn't really doing a lot of the weightlifting. And I think it was starting to take a toll on my eating habits and my joints and all of that. So spending a lot of time on that, and just kind of enjoying taking things a little slower. I'm working from home now, so I do just kind of get up and I work, and my hours are a little weird sometimes because I support groups in Europe and groups in Asia. And so I'll kind of take like a little break midday sometimes, do a little workout. It's just nice to have a little bit more flexibility. And one thing I've noticed is that when you're not like, my life used to be like, get up at 5 in the morning, run to get ready, run to get to work by 6:30 because I have about 45-minute commute without traffic. And if traffic, it gets a lot worse. And then I'd be at work until like 3:30 or 4, and then I'd do that commute home. I'd run and get my son, go to activities. We try to do dinner. I try to get a workout at some point in there. It was just so packed and so busy. My son is older now. He can drive himself to his own activities, and I'm just like really enjoying a somewhat slower pace, which means I'm not reading quite as much because, sometimes I don't like read while I eat lunch. I'll just go sit on the deck and watch the squirrels and the birds in the trees and eat my lunch. I'm just kind of enjoying like not being so hectic all the time. So anyways, all right, that's all I have to say. I hope that you guys also got a lot of great books this last month, and that you have a great month of reading ahead of you, and I will talk to you later. Bye.